Mazal Tov Rani, Mazal Tov Nachi, Nashi, Mazal Tov. Your brother-in-law was my Rebbe in Netiv Aryeh, B'Shragi Bamzer. Yeah. So Mazal Tov to the Balei Mesayimim. If we go back to Parashat Toledot, Sefer Bereshit, Parashat Toledot, we have Yaakov, we have Yitzchak Avinu giving the brachot to Yaakov Avinu. But first, before that, Yitzchak calls over Esav, and he tells him, Esav, please go to the field, get an animal for me, shech this animal, serve me a delicious piece of meat, and after you give me the meat, I'm going to give you the brachot of the bechor that you've been waiting for. Okay, so Esav goes to the field to catch an animal, and in the meantime, as we all know, Rivka overheard what was about to happen, so she quickly calls over Yaakov, and she tells Yaakov, quickly, put on the clothing of Esav, and I'm going to prepare some meat for you, bring the food to Yitzchak, your father, and you're going to get the brachot. Okay? So Yaakov listens to his mother, Kibud Em, and he puts on the clothing of Esav, and she makes the food, she gives it to Yaakov, Yaakov brings the food to Yitzchak, and Yitzchak gives the bracha to Yaakov. And the Mefarshim ask a question. What was the Hava Amena? What was the initial thought of Yitzchak Avinu to give these brachot to Esav? Who was Esav? Esav was a Rasha. Who was Yaakov on the other hand? Yaakov ish tam yeshevo halim. He sat all day long learning Torah. Esav was an ish tzayid. He was a man of the field. He was doing terrible avirot in the field. Chazal tell us he was oved avodah zarah. He was killing people in the field. Gilu arayot, doing the worst avirot. He was a rasha mirusha. Yitzchak Avinu wasn't aware of these avirot. He wasn't aware that his son Esav is a rasha. Of course he was aware. He Ruach HaKodesh. So why did he want to give these brachot to Esav and not to Yaakov the tzaddik? One answer is, the Mefarshim bring down, that Yitzchak Avinu knew very well that when a person has a shefa of gashmiut, when he has an overabundance of gashmiut in this world, it becomes very, very easy for him to leave the life of Torah. And instead he starts to being osek in this temporary world. And therefore, Yitzchak didn't want to give these brachot to Yaakov. Because what were these brachot after all? It was serious brachot of Olam Hazeh. And therefore Yitzchak didn't want to give these brachot to Yaakov because he felt that although Yaakov is a man of Torah and there's no way he would leave the path of Torah. But Yitzchak was worried that in the future the time might come where the children, the descendants of Yaakov, if they have so much shefa of this world, they might slowly but surely leave the path of the Torah, chas v'shalom. And therefore he decided it was better off to give the brachot to Esav. That's one answer. But instead, tonight we'll focus on a different answer. And the answer is very, very simple. Yitzchak Avinu understood that where is the bracha found in this world? It's in the Torah Kedusha. All the bracha is found in the Torah Kedusha. A person doesn't need to go to Mekubalim. He doesn't need to look for segulot to get Yeshua. The bracha is right here. It's in the Torah. That is the greatest segula. En segula ka Torah. That's the greatest segula. And therefore, there was no need to give these brachot to Yaakov Avinu. Because Yaakov Avinu was the man who sat and learned Torah all day long. He was osek in the Torah. He already had all the bracha. If it was ashirut, he had. If it was osher, he had it. Children, he had it. He had everything. There was no need to give him these brachot. Instead, Yitzchak decided to give the brachot to Esav because he wasn't a man of Torah. He had nothing. So at least let me give him some brachot. He'll have some gashmiut in this world. He'll have some shefa in this world. And now we can understand also why the Satan, the Sar Shel Esav, the Malach of Esav, decided to fight against Yaakov. Why didn't he fight against Avraham Avinu? Why didn't he fight against Yitzchak Avinu? Why did he decide to wage a war against Yaakov Avinu? He says over here something beautiful. Because the Sar Shel Esav, the Satan understood that if a person is all about chesed, he does chesedim all day long, but if he doesn't have the koach HaTorah, then I'm not scared of him. I could take him down. If a person has tefillah, yirat shamayim, I can take him down also. It's not difficult. But if a person has Torah, that's going to be difficult. I need to wage a war against him. And therefore, the Satan decided, I don't need to wage a war against Avraham Avinu, because who was Avraham Avinu? He was the pillar of Chesed. So there was no need to take him down, because he could take him down easily. Yitzchak, he was the pillar of Tefillah. And therefore the Satan decided that I could also take him down. There's no need to wage a war. But Yaakov Avinu, Yaakov, he was the pillar of the Torah Kedosha. And therefore the Satan decided that I'm going to go all out against Yaakov Avinu, because that's where all the bracha is. All the bracha, all the hatzlacha is found in the Torah Kedosha. And when a person applies himself, when a person commits himself, and he dedicates his life to the Torah Kedosha, he'll have Shefarav in this world. He'll have all the bracha in this world. The pasuk says, when Yaakov Avinu came and he put on his clothing, he put on the clothing of Esav, and he comes to Yitzchak, his father. Yitzchak feels the arms, the hands of Yaakov, and he says, Hakol kol Yaakov, v'hayadayim yedei Esav. And Chazal learn out from this pasuk that whenever the kol is kol Yaakov, whenever Am Yisrael is learning Torah, whenever the Batei Midrashot are packed, they're full, and the kol, the voice of the Torah is loud, then hayadayim yedei Esav, the koach, the power of the umot ha'olam, it's not there. But kol zman that Am Yisrael is not being osek in the Torah, we're not committing ourselves to the Torah Kedosha, lo aleinu, then all of a sudden, hayadayim yedei Esav, the umot ha'olam, the rest of the world, have power and they could overcome us, chas v'shalom. Asks the Gaon of Vilna, how in the world do Chazal see that from this pasuk? All the pasuk says is Hakol kol Yaakov v'hayadayim yedei Esav. It sounds like you could have both at the same time. You could have Hakol kol Yaakov, the Batei Midrashot are packed. We're learning Torah, we're osek in the Torah, and at the same time hayadayim yedei Esav. Esav, the umot ha'olam, they're strong. You could have both at the same time. How do you see this drasha from this pasuk? Says the Gaon of Vilna, if you look in the Torah, Hakol, that word kol, is without a vav. And therefore you can read it as kal. When the kol of Yaakov is kal, when it's weak, when we're not committing ourselves to the Torah, when we're not learning as much as we should, we're not taking the opportunities that we have every single day to learn Torah, then hayadayim yedei Esav. Then the umot ha'olam have a chance to overtake Am Yisrael. But when the kol is with a vav, it's complete. Am Yisrael is learning Torah every single day. Then hayadayim yedei Esav, it's not going to be there. Am Yisrael will overtake the umot ha'olam. Ein segula kaTorah. The Torah is the ultimate bracha. A person wants bracha. A person wants Yeshuah. He wants Geulah. To commit himself to the Torah. To commit himself to the Torah, that brings the ultimate bracha. We're heading into the time of Pesach now. And we know Pesach has a lot of different names. One of the names is Zman Cherutenu. It's a time of freedom. What's pshat? What does that mean? Simply put, what does it mean it's Zman Cherutenu? Because we left the Shibud of Mitzrayim, right? It's a time of freedom. We left the enslavement of Mitzrayim. Let me ask you a question. Imagine I give you the following offer. I said you could do anything you want in this world except for 7 things. Adhere to these 7 laws, but everything else, go ahead, enjoy life. Or, you can do anything you want, except for 613. Except for 613 things. These 613 things you got to adhere to. But beyond that, you can do whatever you want. What would you pick? What would you choose? The 7. I think every single person here would choose the 7, right? So how in the world is Pesach called Zman Cherutenu? A time of freedom. We went from being slaves in Mitzrayim to all of a sudden becoming the Avadim of Hashem. We received the Torah. That's freedom. That's not freedom. Where's the freedom here? It's not Zman Cherutenu. Perhaps you can even say that this is a bigger shibud. Every single movement of our life is dictated by the laws of the Torah. You have to get up early in the morning, you have to learn the Torah, you have to put on tefillin, you have to get the shacharit. It's crazy, every single move. That's not chirut, that's not freedom. That's a shibud. How is Pesach called Zman Cherutenu? Rabbi Meir comes along in Pirkei Avot and he says, Ein lecha ben chorin ela mi she'osek b'Torah. Who's a ben chorin? Who's a true person that's free in this world? There's only one person that's free in this world. A person who is osek b'Torah. If a person is osek in the Torah, he has true freedom in this world. If a person is not osek in the Torah, he doesn't have true freedom in this world. Kol hamikabel alav ol Torah, ma'avirim mimenu ol malchut ve'ol derech eretz. You want to let go of the ol parnasah. You want to let go of all the tirdot, all the headaches of this world. You mikabel upon yourself ol Torah, the yoke of the Torah. The yoke of the Torah brings a person bracha. It brings a person yeshua. It brings a person happiness. It brings a person ashirut. It brings wealth to a person. Now, what wealth are we talking about? You fast forward 2 parashiyot later. Parashat Vayishlach. Esav is coming with an army of 400 men. And he's coming to kill his brother Yaakov. Right? What happens? Yaakov, the pasuk tells us that Yaakov sends malachim. He sends angels to go to Esav and try to appease him. Says the Torah, Ko tumrun aduni le'Esav. This is what you should say to Esav. Ko amar avdecha Yaakov. This is what your servant Yaakov it tells you. Im lavan garti vayecher ad ata. That I've lived with Lavan all this time. And Rashi over there brings 2 explanations. What does it mean? Im lavan garti. That I've lived with Lavan all this time. Rashi says the first explanation, Esav, you don't need to hate me over the brachot that I received from our father. Why? Because I didn't become a sar, I didn't become a royal official, I didn't become a chashuv, I didn't become important. I'm just a ger in this world, nothing. You don't need to hate me because the brachot weren't fulfilled. Nothing happened. You don't be upset at me, don't be angry. Rashi brings down another explanation. What does it mean, Im lavan garti? Im lavan garti v'tayag mitzvot shamarti. That I lived with Lavan, and I was able to keep the tayag mitzvot, the 613 mitzvot. There are 2 major questions over here. The first question, Esav was angry. He was hot. He wanted to kill Yaakov. How in the world is Yaakov appeasing Esav by telling him, hey buddy, my friend, my brother, the brachot haven't been fulfilled. Don't worry. Don't worry. You don't need to be angry at me. Like he's going to believe you? That's going to work? That's not going to appease him. He's ready to kill you. He's coming with an army of 400 men. That's not going to appease him. Second question. What in the world are you telling Esav? Don't be angry. You know why? Because I've lived with Lavan, and I was able to keep all the 613 mitzvot. What does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with anything? What's going on over here? Says Rav Barzel Zatzal, Rosh Yeshiva of Mir Brachfeld. He says something unbelievable. He says, you know what Yaakov was telling Esav? He was telling him, Esav, let's put everything on the table. What is the root? What is the root of our machloket over here? It's one thing. It's ashirut, wealth. What was the brachot? What are all the brachot about? Wealth in this world, gashmiut in this world. Yaakov was telling Esav, that which you consider ashirut, I don't consider ashirut. And that which I consider ashirut, you don't consider ashirut. Imagine for a second, you were to offer the Gadol Hador a beautiful, beautiful home on the beach with a private pool, and it's just absolutely beautiful. It's gorgeous. You think he would be interested in that for even a slight second? No. Doesn't interest him. He doesn't care about that. It's said over that they came to Rav Aaron Yehuda Leib Steinman Zatzal. The Gadol Hador passed away about 10 years ago. They came over to him and they told him, Rosh Yeshiva, maybe we should paint your ceiling over here. Everything's chipping. It's not kavod. Every single day you have Gedolei Yisrael, you have Rabbanim, people who are chashuv coming to visit you. It's not respectful. And he said no. He didn't want anything of Olam Hazeh. He had nothing. He lived in a 1-bedroom apartment his whole life. He had nothing. The Gedolei Hador don't care about the gashmiut of this world. And that's what Yaakov Avinu was telling Esav. You don't need to be upset at me. You know why? Because what you consider wealth, what you consider ashirut, I don't care about. It doesn't interest me. I didn't become a sar. I didn't become chashuv in this world. I lived with Lavan all these years. I was just a ger. I was just a foreigner. Don't worry, the brachot haven't been fulfilled. You don't need to be upset. And at the same time, that which I think is important in this world, the Torah and the mitzvot, you couldn't care less about that. But don't worry. You don't need to be upset at me because I lived with Lavan and I was still able to keep the Tayag Mitzvot Shamarti. I was still able to keep it. In other words, Yaakov was telling Esav, I didn't take anything away from you, nor did you take anything away from me. So let's be at peace. Rabotai, we see from here a huge lesson, a huge yesod in life. What's true ashirut, real ashirut in this world, is a life of Torah, a life of mitzvot. That's the ultimate ashirut. That's the ultimate ashirut. A person who's wealthy is not a person who has a lot of money. He's not an ashir. People have a lot of money. It looks like it's awesome. It looks like their life is amazing. But it's not amazing unless there's also Torah. There needs to be Torah. Torah is the ultimate amazing in life. It's the ultimate ashirut. Shlomo HaMelech says in Kohelet, Lev chacham limino, velev kesir lismolo. The heart of the wise to the right, and the heart of the fool to the left. What does that mean? Explains the Bat Ayin. Lev chacham limino. Take the word lev, and you go to the right of each letter. So if you go in the alphabet, in the alphabet, before lamed to the right is the letter chaf. Before the letter bet to the right is aleph. What is aleph? Says the Bat Ayin, aleph chaf is ach. What is the word ach? Ach, the Gemara tells us, is a mi'ut. It's coming to limit something. It's coming to teach us that the chacham, a person who's wise, a person who's a bar dat, he knows what's the ikar of this world. He's okay with ach. He's okay with having less in his life. I have enough food. I have a place to live. I have enough to drink. I have enough clothing. All of this is in order to serve Hashem. That's all he needs. He doesn't need too much. But lev chacham, lev kesil ismolo, the heart of the kesil, the heart of the fool, to the left. What does that mean? You take the letters lamed, bet, lev, and you go to the left of each letter. After lamed is mem. After bet, gimel. What does that spell? Gam. A kesil, a fool, always wants more. More, more. I want more. I never have enough. And that was the difference between Yaakov and Esav. When Yaakov and Esav finally meet, this army of 400 men, what does Yaakov tell Esav? What does Esav tell Yaakov? Esav says, Yeshli Rav. What does Yaakov respond? Yeshli Kol. One word difference. But the difference is between Shamayim and Aretz. Esav was saying, Yeshli Rav, I have a lot. But implying, I want more though. I don't have enough. I want more. That's the attitude of the Rasha, of the Kisil. But the Chacham, Yaakov Avinu, he said, no. Yeshli Kol. I have everything I need. I have everything. I'm okay. Why? Because I have Torah. That's all I need. All I need is Torah. That's the greatest ashirut in this world. There's a story brought down about Rav Steinman Zatzal. Rav Lipa Yisraelzin was the grandson of Rav Yashiv Zatzal. And many times he would come to America and he would collect money for yeshivot in Israel, kolelim. And he lived near Rav Steinman. And before every trip to America, he'd always go to the Gadol Hador, to Rav Steinman, and he would always ask him for a bracha. And one time he comes to Rav Steinman and he asks him for a bracha before he goes to America. Rav Steinman, instead of giving him the usual bracha, he looks at Rav Lipa and he tells him, Lipa, I have a business offer for you. I want to get into a business deal with you. And Lipa is, taken aback. He's laughing, he's smiling. The Rosh Hashiva, the Gadol Hador. What type of business deal is he talking about over here? And Rav Steinman saw that he thought he was making a joke out of this. So he said, Lipa, it's a serious offer. It's a serious deal. And Lipa all of a sudden got serious. And he says, okay, Rosh Hashiva, what's the deal? He said, you're going to meet with a lot of rich people in America? He said, yes. He said, are you going to meet with millionaires? He said, Mistama, yes, I'm going to meet with millionaires. He said, Lipa, if you find one person in America who's richer than me, I'll give you $1 million. Lipa says, it shouldn't be a problem. I mean, after all, the Rosh Hashiva lives in a one-bedroom apartment. He has nothing here. Okay, yeah, B'ezrat Hashem, he's laughing. Rosh Hashanah gets up from his seat. He brings Lipa to the kitchen, opens up the refrigerator. He says, Lipa, look at the food I have. I have enough food for the weekdays. I have enough food for Shabbat. He brings him over to his closet in his bedroom and he says, look, I have clothing for the weekdays, clothing for Shabbat, clothing for the winter, clothing for the summer. He goes back to the kitchen, he opens up all the drawers and he says, look, I have my utensils. I have my plates. I have everything I need. Is there anyone out there that's richer than me? If you could find someone that's richer than me, I'll give you $1 million. Okay, Lipa's very excited. He goes to America and he meets with the first rich person. They sit down and this person starts telling Lipa about the problems he's having with his lawyer. And Lipa decides this isn't the guy. He meets with another wealthy person. This person is telling Lipa all about the issues that he's having with his daughter and his chinuch yiladim, and he figured, okay, this isn't the guy either. He meets with the next guy, and he's telling him, he says, if you promise me 1 month of menuchat nefesh, I'll write you a check for $3 million right now. And he decided this guy isn't happy either. Okay. The next day, he comes to a wealthy person. He looks at this house and he says, just to walk from the walkway to the front door takes 5 minutes. This is for sure my guy. This is going to get me the $1 million. And he goes there and he's talking to the wealthy man. And again, the wealthy man is telling him all about his issues, all of his problems. And Lipa says, this guy isn't happy. I'm not getting my $1 million. Okay, it was a fail. He goes back to Israel. He goes back to Rosh Shlomo, and he tells Rosh Shlomo the whole story. And he said, the Rosh Yeshiva is right. I couldn't find anyone. And the Rosh Yeshiva was smiling, and he said, I told you. But he said to the Rosh Yeshiva, is it okay if next time I go to America we could still have this deal? He said, sure, why not? A few months later, Lipa goes back to America. On his trip in America, he's in New York, and all of a sudden he finds Rav Uri Zohar walking on the street. And they're talking to each other. And assuming we all know Rav Uri Zohar, Rav Uri Zohar was a famous actor in Israel. I don't know the famous actor you could think of in America, but the most famous actor or actress you could think of in America, that was him in Israel until his middle age, old age, I don't know exactly when, but he became a huge Baal Teshuvah. He totally left all of Olam Hazeh and lived a life full of Torah mitzvot. It was an unbelievable story. He passed away a few years ago. So Lipa meets Rav Uri Zohar on the street and they start talking to each other. And Lipa tells Rav Uri Zohar about this deal that he has with Rosh Shlomo. So Uri Zohar tells him, Lipa, you found your man. You're going to get your $1 million. I'm richer, I'm more wealthy than Rosh Shlomo. And he says, I'll explain. He says, you know the path of my life. No one had the ups and downs of my life. And therefore, because I went through what I went through, I recognized the value of every single mitzvah. I realized the value of every single word of Torah. I realized the value of every single time I'm metaken another midah of mine. I know it's so precious. And because of that, I'm happier than Rosh Shlomo. I'm richer than Rosh Shlomo. You go tell him that and you'll get your $1 million. Okay? They take leave of each other. And then a few seconds later, Uri Zohar starts running after Lipa. And he starts calling him over, Lipa, Lipa. And he says, I take back what I said. I was wrong. Rosh Shlomo is richer than me. He says, why? What do you mean? He says, I'll explain. Chazal say that anytime a person feels a refion, a weakness in his Yirat Shamayim, there's different things he can do to strengthen his Yirat Shamayim. One example is you take the Yetzer Hara, Noshcheru the Beit HaMidrash, you drag him into the Beit HaMidrash, and you learn Torah. Another way to strengthen Yirat Shamayim is remember the Yom HaMitah, the day of death. Says Uri Zohar to Lipa, he says, you know what I do whenever I need to strengthen my Yirat Shamayim? I picture Rav Shlomo learning Torah in his apartment. Every time I go to meet Rav Shlomo, there he is, sitting on his bed, hunched over his Gemara, his Sefer, and he's just learning by himself. No fanfare, nothing, just by himself, right? But he's not by himself. He's there with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's a person who lives with Shiviti Hashem, the Nidei Tamid. 24/7 he's with Hashem. And I haven't reached that level yet. And a person who lives with Hashem 24/7, that's truly a rich person. That's the richest person in the world. And therefore, Lipa, I'm very sorry, but you're not going to get your $1 million from me. Go and find someone else. Lipa goes back to Israel. He meets with Rav Shlomo, and he told him the whole story about Uri Zohar. And Rav Shlomo said to him, I told you, you're not going to find anyone in America that's richer than me. A few years later, Lipa comes to visit Rav Shlomo. And Rav Shlomo is in the middle of learning Torah with some of his Talmidim. This is just a few months before he passed away. Lipa walks into the room, and Rav Shlomo says, Lipa, give me a bracha. And Lipa's taken aback, and he says, the Rosh Yeshiva wants a bracha from me, you're the Gadol Hador. And he said, Lipa, give me a bracha. So Lipa looks at the Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Shlomo, and he tells him, I give a bracha to the Rosh Yeshiva that he should continue being the richest person in the world. And Rosh Hashanah gave a smile to Lipa. As he remembered, that was the business deal they had years prior. And that was the last smile that Rosh Hashanah gave to Lipa. Just a few months later, he passed away. True Ashirut, Rabotai, is a life of Torah. True Bracha, it's found in the Torah Kedusha. Segulot are nice. Going to meet Mekubalim, it's nice. And perhaps it's helpful. But the most helpful Segula, the best Segula out there, is the Torah. En Segula ka Torah. I don't know Nashi very much, but I know Rani. I see Rani here. I once told him, why don't you come to the night Seder? Come, learn with us. And he told me, I can't do the nights. I'm just not a night guy. I get up very, very early in the morning and I start learning. I have my morning Seder. It's just going to be too hard for me to do it at nights. And I see him here, the few times a year I randomly come to the Netz Minyan here, I see him here already. He has a stack of Sfarim and he's learning. He's like Mishlei, his Gemara, his Mishnayot Gitin, everything, He already has his morning Seder before Shacharit. After Shacharit, he learns a little more. That's a person who knows what the Ikar of this world is. That's a person who knows what's truly a bracha in this world. That's a person who recognizes, I don't need to get up at 5, 6 a.m. to run to work. No. I'll get up at 5, 6 a.m. to learn Torah, to be Kovei Yitima Torah, to have my Seder Limud, pray Shacharit, then learn a little bit more, and then go to work. And I'm sure doing work also, you pull out your Mishnayot, you're learning here and there, whatever opportunity you have. Nashi, I'm sure you're doing the same thing. These are people who recognize the value of Torah. These are people who know what true Ashirut is in this world. Zman Cherutenu. This is the time. This is the time. Ein lecha ben churin ela mi she'osek b'Torah. You want true freedom. You want true happiness, true ashirut. It's a life of Torah. It's a life of delving into the Torah, of committing and dedicating yourself to the Torah Kedusha. Yiratzon, we should all be zocheh to take upon ourselves the old Torah, the old Malchut Shamayim, and Mitzvot Hashem. With that, we'll be zocheh to see the Geulah Shlema b'mehira v'yameinu. Amen v'amen.